At 7 a.m. on a quiet October morning, 50 charter buses rolled down a narrow Montana County road toward my ranch. By 7:40, every single one of them was stopped behind a locked steel gate, my gate. And the man who had organized the entire tour was standing outside it, staring at the lock like he had just discovered the one detail he never bothered to check. Because nobody had asked me. My name is Edward Call. I'm 51 years old, and 6 years ago I left a 23-year career in event logistics and large-scale venue operations to live a quieter life in Montana. I had spent decades managing conferences, festivals, and corporate gatherings that brought thousands of people together in carefully planned spaces. After enough years of watching poorly organized events collapse under their own bad planning, I decided I'd had enough of the chaos. So I bought land. My property sits just outside Bozeman, 114 acres of open grassland with a creek cutting through the lower pasture and a long row of lodgepole pines lining the northern boundary. From my porch you can see the Bridger Range rising in the distance. It's the kind of view that makes people stop talking for a moment the first time they see it. I run a small cattle operation and lease part of the hayfield to a neighbor. Most days are quiet. That's exactly how I like it. For years, my nearest neighbors were the homes of the Richmond Valley Development, a planned community built on land east of my property. The neighborhood had around 300 homes, a clubhouse, walking trails, and the usual homeowners association to manage it all. During the early years, the HOA was run by practical people who kept things organized and professional. I rarely thought about them at all. That changed when a man named Stuart Briggs became HOA president. Stuart was the kind of person you recognize immediately, fast-talking, confident, always moving like he had 3 meetings to get to. He had made his money in commercial real estate development in Denver before moving to Montana, and from what I heard, he had big ideas about turning Richmond Valley into something more than just another quiet neighborhood. Within a year of taking over the HOA board, Stuart had tripled their event budget. He organized summer festivals, farmers markets, outdoor concerts, events designed to attract attention from outside the community. According to neighbors who attended the HOA meetings, Stuart wanted Richmond Valley to become what he called a destination neighborhood. And then he announced his biggest idea. An autumn heritage tour. The concept sounded simple enough. Charter buses would take residents and ticket-holding visitors on a scenic drive through the countryside around the development. The route would highlight local ranches, farmland, and scenic viewpoints across Gallatin County. It was meant to celebrate the agricultural heritage of the area. There was just one problem. Part of the tour route crossed my land. I didn't learn about the event from the HOA. I learned about it 11 days before the tour when a woman named Patricia Hensley, one of the Richmond Valley residents, called my phone. She sounded cheerful. She asked if I was excited about having hundreds of visitors drive through my ranch during the heritage tour. I had no idea what she was talking about. Patricia assumed I already knew about the event. She said the tour description online specifically mentioned a scenic private ranch road crossing with views of the creek and mountains. She even mentioned the photograph used in the promotion. That was when I asked her to send me the link. When the event page loaded on my laptop a few minutes later, I immediately recognized the photograph. It had been taken from the fence line along my southern pasture. The image showed my gravel road curving toward the creek with the Bridger Range behind it. I had built that road myself in 2019 to access the lower section of my property. The tour description proudly advertised that the buses would travel along that scenic private ranch road. What the description didn't mention was that nobody had ever asked the ranch owner if that was allowed. I sat there for a minute, reading the page again. Then I called my attorney. Her name is Renata Shaw, and she specializes in property and land use law. She had helped me with the legal paperwork when I purchased the ranch. After looking at the event page, Renata told me the situation was extremely straightforward. The road was private property. The gate at the entrance was mine. The HOA had absolutely no right to route buses across it. She gave me 2 options. Option 1 was to send a cease and desist letter immediately and force them to change the route before the event. Option 2 was to say nothing and let them discover the problem themselves on the day of the tour. I thought about it for about 10 seconds. Then I chose option 2. Over the next 10 days I quietly prepared. I installed a new heavy-duty padlock on the gate at the entrance to the gravel road. I set up trail cameras pointed toward the gate so everything would be recorded. I saved screenshots of the event advertisement and sent them to Renata for documentation. And then I waited. The morning of the tour arrived with clear skies and that sharp Montana autumn air that makes the mountains look almost painted onto the horizon. At exactly 7 in the morning, I heard the first bus. Then another. And another. By 7:40 a.m., the lead bus was stopped 6 inches from the locked gate, with 49 more lined up behind it stretching back to the county highway. From my porch I could see passengers stepping off buses, drivers talking into radios, and volunteers trying to figure out why the tour had suddenly stopped. Then Stuart Briggs arrived in a black SUV. He walked to the gate, looked at the lock, and then looked toward my house. A minute later he was standing at my fence line calling out to me. I walked down to meet him. He introduced himself like we had never lived within half a mile of each other for the past 6 years. Then he asked if I could open the gate so the buses could continue the tour route. I told him there was no misunderstanding. The gate was locked because it was on my property, and 50 buses were trying to enter it without permission. He tried explaining that 2,000 tickets had been sold and the event had been planned for months. I told him that none of that involved me. He tried a different angle: neighborly cooperation, community goodwill, disappointed visitors. I listened politely. Then I told him the same thing again. The gate wasn't opening. About an hour later, a sheriff's deputy arrived after Stuart apparently called hoping law enforcement could force the issue. The deputy walked over to my fence line. I showed him my property deed and explained the situation. For minutes later, he nodded, walked back to Stuart, and drove away. By noon, the buses began turning around one by one on the narrow county road. It took hours. Passengers left. Drivers complained. Refunds were demanded. The Autumn Heritage Tour ended without a single bus ever crossing my land. 3 months later, after a series of legal discussions between attorneys, the HOA agreed to a settlement. They paid my legal fees, damages for unauthorized commercial use of my property image, and filed a written acknowledgement with the county confirming that my road and gate were private property with no public access rights. Stuart Briggs did not run for HOA president again the following year. My gate is still there today. Still locked. And every autumn, when the grass turns gold and the mountains glow in the morning light, I remember that Saturday when 50 tour buses stopped at a gate nobody bothered to ask about. Because when it comes to private land, the most powerful position you can hold isn't money, influence, or a big event plan. It's simply knowing exactly where your boundary is, and being willing to stand there while everyone else realizes they should have asked first.